Hello guys, welcome back to John's Workshop. In this video we're going to look at making the height adjustment pieces for the Dickson Toolpost cartridges that I recently made. So and what I'm going to do with this episode is completely the opposite from what I did with the Dickson cartridges, where with those I went to the kind of the nth degree to ensure accuracy, you know, and made the setup quite rigid and stuck to it closely with lots of measurement, lots of measure cuts, just to make sure I got everything correct. And I was really pleased with the output of that. For these height adjustment pieces, really, and you can see the picture up on the board there, that there's nothing really critical about these at all, other than the thickness of the flange that locates in the sort of movable part on the top of the tool post. So the rest of it is all open limits. It could be 20mm longer than that, it really wouldn't matter, other than you'd need longer threads. The wasted section in the middle could be plus minus half a mil, it really doesn't matter, it's completely an open clearance. So what I'm going to do in this episode is show a different way of manufacturing these from, I guess, conventional methods. So I'll just zoom you in on the picture a little bit, and I'll show you typically a conventional way of machining it, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what I'm planning to do. So you can see there the height adjustment piece. So, you know, conventional turning, you'd probably turn this the other way round, so you've got the smallest diameter at the right hand side and the biggest diameter at the left hand side. That's kind of convention. But even this way round, you know, you'd use a standard turning tool potentially to turn this diameter at this end. You'd then use potentially something like a knife tool to plunge in and do sort of one side of the cutaway section, and then if you had the opposite hand of that tool, which I don't, you could come in and do the other side. Or I could use, you know, something like this, which is a raised tip tool ground up, and I could come in and do this side. Obviously then you've got another diameter to turn this end, and you could use either of the tools or go back to the kind of the standard turning tool to turn that. Then got a knurling tool, and then a series of tools to go up the centre to put the hole in and thread it. So that's typically a conventional way of machining it. I'm going to go for a completely different method to that. As I said, none of this is critical, so we're going to go for a method that uses the fewest tools possible and the simplest setup possible to manufacture these with the minimal amount of waste in terms of bar stock. So we'll go to the lathe now and I'll start showing you the setup that we're going to use. Okay, so we're at the lathe, guys, and this setup's going to be all about the compound slide. So I'm going to do the majority of the turning using the compound slide rather than the saddle. So what I want to do is ensure that the compound slide is square, you know, to the lathe. So I've put I'll just show you this. This was something that I spoke about in my workshop blether. So this is a DTI, you know, piece of square aluminium. Fortunately, this DTI's got two threads on the back, which is very useful. So I've just basically milled this bit of aluminium bar down, poked the holes through, two nuts on the back, and I've set that on centre height in the lathe. So that's ready to use. I've recently stripped this down. I don't know if you can see this clock or if it's blowing out with the light. That's probably better. So this is it's a Mercer DTI. It was my dad's. It's very old, and right from when I've owned it, it's had a cracked screen, and this face was covered in dirt and grinding dust and various other stuff. I had another DTI that was kind of one that I'd raked out of a skip at some point, was broken, but the screen was in good condition. So I've recently stripped this down, cleaned it all up, put the new screen on, and this is, you know, very serviceable again. It's a 10ths DTI, so each graduation is a 1/10 of a thou, so it's very sensitive. so we're going to use that. So we'll just bring that in to the chuck. What I'm going to do is just wind this onto the chuck. I don't know if you can see the dial, I think you can. And then I'm just going to check. So I've set the compound slide as close as I can by eye with the graduations, and we're just going to check what that looks like across the sort of diameter of the chuck. So we're 0 at one end, yeah, 2 or 3 tenths of a thou over 2.5, 3 inches. So I'm happy with that. I'm not going to change that. So that was I've not done any checks on that. That's the first time I've actually physically checked that. So that was a really good setup on there. So that proves that the graduations on this lathe are, that, you know, they're easy to read, easy to set, and obviously very accurate, which is very good. So I'm happy with that. We'll leave that as it is. So we'll take the clock out. Now the way I'm going to machine this, basically, and I'll show you now, what I'm doing here, guys, is I'm using the old height adjustment pieces that came with the 3 holders that I got, just to try and get me through this project. And basically what I'm going to do, if I turn it this way, I'm going to turn them this way round, so the same way as I've shown on the whiteboard, and I'm basically going to use the parting off tool to do the majority, if not all, of the turning. So I'm going to basically plunge in, I'll come the other side so you can see, but I'm going to plunge in to create that all of the diameters. I'm going to plunge in and take all of the material out the middle and then do a finish pass across it. The surface finish will be poor, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to plunge in on this diameter again to create it. Again, the surface finish will be poor, but again it doesn't matter because it will be knurled. So, and then finally part off at the end. So I'm going to try and do all the work with the parting off tool. This is a 5mm wide insert, so nice and stable. So that's the plan, and we'll see how we get on with it. So I'll just get a bit of bar stock. What I'm going to use is EN24, not necessary for these, but what I've done is bought myself a decent length of EN24 because I want to make a tailstock die holder, and I want some decent material to turn the Morse taper out of that's going to be a bit tougher and longer lasting. So it's the right diameter for making these as well, so I just ordered a bit of an extra length to ensure I've got enough to make these height adjustment pieces. So we'll get that bit of bar stock loaded up in the lathe, and I'll bring you back as we start cutting some metal. What I've done here, guys, is I've transposed my my drawing, if you like, off the whiteboard, and I've just drawn it onto the compound slide, and I've transposed my lengths. So 3mm wide is that the bit that actually locates in the tool post. 23¼ wide is the centerpiece, and then 5.5mm wide is the knurled portion. And then on the bottom side, what I've done here is I've actually transposed the diameters into a diameter, because this lathe's in diameter, a diameter that I need to remove. I know the diameter of the bar is 25.4 that I'm going to use. I know what my finished diameters need to be, so I know what the difference is. So basically this is the difference in diameter. So on this end the difference is 4mm, in the middle it's 13.4mm, and on the knurled end it's 6.6mm. And basically what I've done is, from 0 on my cross slide, just bear with me, zoom out. So on my cross slide here, from 0, I've actually put 3 lines in with marker pen at the right point where all those 3 finished diameters need to be, so that I now know where my finished lines are. The difficulty is that there's just 3 black lines, so I need to still count as I'm going, so that I know which black line I'm working to on which particular diameter, but it gives me my target finished dimension. And I don't know if you can see the bar, it's sticking slightly too far out the chuck at the moment, a lot further than I would need it to make this one of these. The reason being, I've got about 10 inches of this sticking out the back end of the headstock, and so I'm trying to reduce the amount sticking out the back end. So this is sticking out the front by probably 25mm longer than it needs to be, but I'm sure that'll be fine. So we'll get set up now, we'll start putting the tools in, and I'll bring you back when we start cutting. Okay, because this is a rough sawn bar end, I'm just going to face this up before we start with the parting tool, just so that I've got a clean face. So parting tools, they don't like cutting small, medium amounts if you like. Small amounts, like a few thou will be fine outside cutting, but any more than that, they want to push off. They're okay being buried fully into the material, and what you'll see as I rough out the sort of centre section, you'll see that I'll try and keep the tool buried wherever possible in full thickness, full width into the material, rather than doing half cuts, and that avoids any push off, if you like, of the tool. So what I'm going to do just to start with is just face this end up, because I don't know how good that cut is, and then we'll set the parting tool up and we'll start the turning. So I'm going to use, just for this, the CNMG tool that I showed in the Blether video recently that I set up. So we'll just face off with that, and I'm working around the tripod a bit here, guys. I'm trying to get you, now I've got a decent camera that will focus, I'm trying to get you some better images of what's actually happening at the coal face. So we'll just zoom you in a bit. We'll just face this off. Right guys, I've loaded up the parting tool. What I've done is I've just moved the bar back slightly in the chuck. I wasn't happy with how far it was stuck out, so we've moved the whole thing back by 15-20mm, and I've just refaced that face again, same as you saw me do earlier. So I'm now going to set the parting tool up, ready to do the rest of the turning. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take a tiny whisper off this face, and I'm going to set my zero on my compound slide so that I know my tool is zeroed on that face. So I know it's a 5mm insertion here, so 2 turns, it's 2.5mm a turn of the compound slide, so 2 turns will be 5mm in. So we'll just wind that on now. 1, 2, so that's a full width of cut, and I'm now going to plunge in to the 4mm diameter off to make the large end, if you like, of the adjustment piece. that done, we'll just double check my diameter, make sure that's correct. Yeah, I've left 0.2 on and there is 0.2 left on there, so we'll just take the final 0.2 off. Check the size again, make sure we're correct on size now. Yep. So now I've got my compound slide zeroed in and I've also got my cross slide zeroed in. So what I'm going to do now is pitch across to the far end of the cutout in the middle, so that I can see where that needs to be, which is 23¼ plus 3, which is 26¼ and I'm already 5mm in.
At that point, so that's 5 mm, and I made 26¼ so 5, 7½, 10, 12½, 15, 17½, 20, 2½, 25.
We'll go for 26 and I'll leave 1/4 mil on there for a finish clean up when we're done. So I'm now going to plunge in 13.4mm to the bottom of that groove. Okay, so that's that bit done. So now we're going to plunge the diameter for the knurled section now. That's that done, and now I'm just going to plunge in a small amount behind where I'm going to finish the actual part off. So our total length is 31.75. Just come back to my start point. So that's 0. Only 1.75, let me just check that. Yep. I'm just going to plunge plus 5mm for the tool. Only 1.75, I'm just going to plunge in there. I'm going to take the parting tool off at that point. And I'm going to drop a chamfer tool on now. Now I don't have any height adjustment for this, so we're just going to have to set this up by eye. Undo the carriage now, because we're done with all the settings. So I'm just going to set this up to the centre mark. That's there. I'm just going to put some chamfers on everywhere. Okay, that's everything chamfered. Now we'll set the knurling tool up again. I don't have a height adjustment piece for this, but it really doesn't matter because this is self-centering anyway. This knurling tool, the whole front end of it articulates, so as long as it's somewhere near, it will be fine. I'm just going to get rid of these two bits of material that are jangling around on here, so they don't get trapped in between the knurls. Bring that onto centre, slow things down a bit, somewhere there. Looks good. Yep, that's a reasonable nail on there. So we can now put the hole in the thread up the middle. Speed things up a bit. Centre drill, and I need a 6.8 drill for M8. I'm just going to cut the video and I'll bring you back. I need to go and make some more cooling up. Right, we're back. Some of Scotland's freshest rain in there. So we'll put the 6.8 hole through there now. Just get the countersink, slow things down a bit. Finally, the tap. Just finish that off by hand. Go into a blind hole. As far as I can go with that tap. That should hopefully be most of the way through. The final job there now, just to pop the parting tool back on and just part that off. Lock the carriage back off again. There we go. So there's the first one done. So I just need to rinse and repeat another 3 times, and that will be all of them made for the cartridges that I've made, certainly that you saw me make in the previous episode. So I'll bring you back when I've got them all to that state, and then I think the last thing will give them a degrease. All I need to do on this, by the way, is I'm just going to countersink this end, and I'll just do that in the pillar drill where I've just parted it off, and then we'll give them a degrease and a chemical black, and that'll be the end of this project. Well, there we go, guys. That's the end of the project. So that's all 4 complete, almost to the same standard. We had a bit of an accident with this one, but it ended up a bit thinner on that top knurled section, but I won't say anything if you don't. We'll just hide that one at the back, out of the way. So it won't affect the use. So that's all 4 finished. I'm going to assemble those up now onto the tool post, onto the holders that I made. We'll just zoom out. So they'll fit on there, and then we'll get them all set up now on the tools that don't have them, and that's the end of this project. So I've got more to make at some point in the future when I make more holders, but for now that's the end of this project. So thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, comments welcome. If you've not subscribed, please do, it helps the channel. and I'll catch you all very shortly on another video when we'll be making something else.